Thank you very much for inviting me here this afternoon. I'm going to say a little bit about AN, and then I've picked out a few thoughts which have come through to me from our membership, or key things that have come through our survey recently about how our artists are reacting to, or their concerns around Brexit. So first of all, AN has been an open line for communication between artists for almost 40 years. It's the largest representative membership organisation for visual artists in the UK, and it offers support and services, bursaries, information, and of course we advocate on behalf of our 21,000 members across the UK. Most recently, we've been working on our Paying Artists campaign, which has highlighted that 71% of artists had told us they'd exhibited work in publicly funded galleries without receiving payment. And in October this year, we published the first guidance and framework for exhibition payment endorsed by arts councils in England, Scotland and Wales. So following the referendum in July, we ran a survey and an open call to start to understand the depth of impact the EU vote would have on our membership. We know a lot about them, but we hadn't actually had to ask them previously what passport they held. So this was a new question for us to them. And we were interested to find through that survey that 12% of our members, about 2,500, hold a non-UK passport. The majority of these are from EU countries. Now that is just in our membership. It's not all visual artists in the UK, but it's still quite a significant number. And it tells us that there are quite a high number of EU and rest of world artists who choose to live and work in the UK, and they're currently contributing to the UK economy and to our cultural offer. We obviously have a high proportion of UK passport members who will be affected directly by any potential changes to visa, import and export rules. And our open call in July also at that point raised concerns from artists around potential loss of EU legislative protection, particularly around in relation to ethnic and disability discrimination. Now, we wanted to know as part of that survey not just who our members were, where they came from, but we also wanted to assess what the impact, or what they thought the impact, the potential impact of Brexit might be on their professional practice. And almost half, funnily enough, thought that it would impact negatively on their incomes and opportunities. Obviously this was speculation at the time and in reaction to the vote, but in the last 6 months we've already seen and heard artists talking about rising costs of art materials for their practice, as much as 25% in some cases, and of the cancellation of projects. So there is already, in this uncertainty, quite a kind of immediate effect on their incomes and opportunities. But there was most anxiety around the impact of potential changes to freedom of movement. 54% of our artists had travelled to Europe between 1 and 6 times in the last 12 months for work, and the majority of these were UK passport holders. Now that equates to 10,500 of AN's members, each undertaking a significant amount of European travel each year for their practice or for professional development. Travel is and always has been a vital element of the working and development patterns of artists to build networks and to broaden intellectual exchange. And our figures reflect not just the number of opportunities currently available to them across Europe, but also how easy it is currently to make, exhibit and sell work. And that's just as important for EU artists working and selling in the UK. And that freedom increases the range of artists exhibited in the UK and across Europe. It impacts on the diversity of experiences for our cultural audiences, and it impacts on the quality of our cultural offer across the board, and it has to be protected. Artists, as I'm sure many of you will know, have very precarious existence. They are incredibly resilient and self-sufficient, but there is a tipping point. And talking to colleagues across Europe and seeing results from this survey and other work that we're doing, it's easy to see how that point is coming closer for some. Most artists work freelance, they're time poor, they juggle several jobs with low incomes and little financial or legal protection in a largely unregulated market. It's not what we would call optimal. We know this, but we also know that artists are not primarily motivated by money or income. But the fact is that without their sort of singular intellectual contribution, There won't be the exhibition content, the new shows or titles that fuel the economic success that the creative industries currently demonstrate. So it's essential that any Brexit model going forward safeguards and support their basic work needs, as any barriers risk impacting on the quality and quantity of output we all enjoy. So income and work impact, yes, but how about emotional and social impact? For the majority of our members, the vote really generated a sense of real loss. Many cited also a philosophical commitment to the arts as an inclusive and outward-looking sector. And the shock of the result and subsequent rise of far-right politics has forced many to question what they do or can do. So we see a growing appetite for activism in our membership at all levels, and for solidarity, not just on Europe, but on many related issues, which I think is a good thing. We're helping artists to host small conversations within their peer groups to come together, to support each other, to share approaches, and in some cases self-organise, and we'll be touring later this year around the UK to have more of these conversations. Some of our members are proactively campaigning. Artist Joseph Young's Arts for EU campaign continues as a conduit for pro-European artist dialogue and his own political agitation. And the artist-led Keep It Complex is organising a full arts activation weekend in January to instigate what they call a complex cultural shift and to acknowledge art's complicity in politics, which should be interesting. And where artists live has informed other responses and challenges for proactive dialogue. Bank Street Arts in the north of England invited artists to respond to a brief of just 2 words: leave, remain, for its October exhibition. And artist Jessica Harvey's piece, Referendum, Ask Me How Do I Feel, evolved from a large, wide discussion with the local community, looking at feelings of discomfort, representation and national identity. And that was quite a brave work in an area which was divided quite significantly by its very narrow Leave majority of 1%. Now, it's worth noting that Brexit voters were not evenly spread across the UK either. Scotland and Northern Ireland both voted Remain. Wales voted to leave, as of course did large parts of England. So this geography in itself poses an interesting challenge for the cultural sector and those seeking to develop cultural audiences and dialogues around Brexit in the years to come. And we at AN are aware that while the majority of our artist members voted Remain, there were a minority who voted Leave. And as a democratic platform, that means that we need to constructively find a way of supporting their dialogue with their peers as well. Now, in the short term, and in the lack of coherent direction from our political leadership about what will happen, we've been focusing for the last 6 months on information sharing and dealing with misinformation to the artist community following the vote. We've connected with other campaigns and lobbying groups, including the Creative Industries Federation here and others. We've published an artist advocacy pack to help artists who want to have more of a voice to do so. And we're launching a new bursary strand next month for artist-led groups to explore Brexit-related and other issues. And we also host around 1,200 artist blogs a year to help encourage and support peer sharing and discussion and debate on that level as well. We're demonstrating our commitment to open communication internationally as well, and I think that is the focus for us going forward. I think we're not wanting just to talk about how we're working with Europe only, we're keeping it a broad thing. Our artists travel internationally. We're doing that through our news pages, through the opportunities we promote to artists, and being active on their behalf through these kind of forums. But on a kind of broader note, I suppose it's worth noticing that the world has been fragmenting and becoming technologically more complex around artists for decades. And artists and the market have tended to adapt to fit, not easily, and it is becoming increasingly difficult. As one of the 48%, and as a Scot, uncharacteristically as a Scot, I am insisting that we have to remain optimistic. There has always been competition and compelling alternatives to art and culture. And like many of you here today, our job really, like at AN, is to ensure that our artists continue to do what they've always done and need to do to develop their practice and to make work. So that is what we're planning to do at AN.